Hello and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out number 80 over Firefight, book 2 in the Reckoner series by Brandon Sanderson. And kind of a weird day for us. Too many books. We're here on a Wednesday, as well as we are guest starring Karen with us here today. Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Glad to be back.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. And good to see you, Ben. Yeah, such a fun book. And, Peter and I are really big on quotes. And there's one where it's...
I snagged a couple. I'm missing the potato one.
Yeah. I was going to toss in a quote that wasn't from this book, but either you die a hero or live long enough to be the villain, right?
Okay.
And that's very much the way I feel with book 2. But yeah, super excited to get into this. I enjoyed the reread. Karen joined us for Steelheart. Super excited she picked up the series. Finally got Pete to check it out. But before we forget, well, bam.
Yay.
Yeah, didn't forget it this time. And
I still want to redo it, but anyway.
Yeah, we need to. I keep trying to troubleshoot my camera, but somehow when I look at my virtual cam and I look in StreamYards and then I check out YouTube just has me as like a 16-bit Wookiee or something. So apologies there on the technical support.
Yeah, I'll check it out later.
I'll get my tech guy to check it out in a bit. But yeah, anyway, first impressions. What do you guys think? You want to start off, Karen?
I thought it was a good follow-up to book 1. They picked right up and kept it going, and they introduced some new characters, and they put it in a new setting, and I thought they did a good job of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how about you, Pete?
So normally book 2 is very melodramatic for me. Example, another Brandon Sanderson series, Mistborn Era 1, second book in that series, was very blah for me, where it was a lot of political maneuvering. Not Brandon, you did it. I might really enjoy book 2. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed book 1, but oh my, the ending, the final part 4, there were so many twists and turns throughout the story that I thoroughly enjoyed book 2. And there's still so much to behold and happened, and yeah.
In Calamity. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see where it goes. I know I'm
the only one who hasn't read the third one yet.
That's good.
Yes, well.
That's good. You can't spoil it, so you can hold the rest of us accountable. Though it's been so long for me, it'd be pretty hard for me to spoil it.
Yeah, I like speculating too much.
Yeah.
And all the other times I already know, and I gotta hold my tongue. But
you're doing it right. But yeah, it's hard not to just binge them, and moments like this where you're just glad the whole series is out, so you could just pick up the next one and keep going.
Yeah.
Because I think I told Karen about the first one, and then I ended up talking to her a little bit later, and she's like, "So I'm done with the series now." And yeah.
I confess I did not read book 1.2, 1.5. There's one that they put in between books 1 and 2. And I sort of looked at the summary of it because it was a shorter novel, and I didn't want to buy the book, so I was cheap. but it looked like it was a
I think I picked it up on it was like free or whatever promotion once upon a time. Was it like Mitosis or something like that?
That's what
Short
it's called.
novella. It's fun, but you don't really need it to jump into book 2. I'm trying to think. Is it like 3 to 4 months time hop between book 1 and book 2? Does that sound about right?
I don't think it really says what the time hop was, but time has definitely passed because he went from only having killed Steelheart, and then I'm trying to remember the Darkness guy. Anyway, so he had only killed 2, and then by the time we're in our opener and he's throwing Kool-Aid water balloons at our most recent epic.
Right, source field. Yeah. I really enjoy in this book we get to learn more about their weaknesses, right? Like previously they didn't realize that there was a connection there, and then David starts piecing it together. And we get to see it when later on Calamity tries to give him powers, and it ends up all being tied to their nightmares and their fears, right? So that was a big reveal there. Be interesting to see how that continues in book 3 for those who haven't read it. But yeah. Jumping around, and I do want to pick apart like the earlier parts, but did you guys see it coming with Regalia? Like what she was trying to get at in the end? Because we end up finding out that Prof
she needs a successor.
Regalia, and a couple other epics back in the day pretty much try to form like this superhero squad, right?
Yeah.
And they were good friends, and then I guess Prof was the only one that didn't turn to the dark side at that time. So she was trying to lure him out or whatever. Like, did you guys see that coming? Or?
I don't know if I would say Regalia truly turned to the dark side. She still definitely seemed fully in control for the most part. The one part that I was pretty sad about, which I'm sure it's a great lead into the next book, but when David kills Regalia because she has a cancer and she's old and decrepit, I was totally thinking, oh, well, if Prof was here, he could just heal her. But I don't know how well it works. If it reverts back to what your cells know is healed.
I think they decided, didn't they decide that he couldn't have healed her because it wasn't related to her powers. It was the tumor wasn't related to that. They explained it somehow that he couldn't do it, but I can't remember how.
I think that's probably 3, because the very end of 2 is when Prof deflects the bomb, and then David kills Regalia.
I don't remember, but yeah. Prof is an overall powerhouse. So
yeah.
Luckily for us, like at the beginning, I was kind of disappointed that we were leaving Cody and Abraham behind because they're so fun. But then by the end of the book, you're kind of like, thank goodness they got left behind, right? Because Prof just goes pure tie up loose ends mode. We get attached to XL, our mortuarian
or
mortician / CIA agent. And then he eliminates the lead of that unit. I'm trying to remember her name.
I want to say Val.
It was Val, I think.
Yeah. Which we weren't too big fans of hers because she was always picking fights with David.
She had one memorable moment with the tank, But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
when she was reliving it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
And this,
now I'm a little concerned for book 3. Okay, not really. But now we have all of the comic relief rolled up into one team
Mm-hmm.
where we have David, who is sarcastic and trying to get all of his metaphors working, teamed up with Megan, Firefight, who they're always going at it and joking around with.
Missy.
Oh, Missy, thank
Missy.
you,
Mhm.
who is comical. And then, I think the only serious guy that we still have is, the guy who gave David the pendant of the,
Abraham.
yeah, Abraham.
I
The
thought that
rest of
was
them
kind
are
of
all comic relief.
yeah. Sorry, I'll let Karen chime in next. She was going to say something. Um, no. I really enjoyed the progression of David with just kind of how he didn't quite convert to what they call it, like the faithful or whatever, the religion that believes as long as people just hold out that eventually the true heroes will come, as Abraham gives him like the symbol or the pendant. And hey, Carlos, good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. Like he took the pendant initially out of like, Abraham was giving it to him with best intentions, so he just accepted it. And then by the end of it, like he believed that eventually the heroes would come, and you just kind of have to like help them along, right? So just to see that progression there.
Yeah, he almost got rid of that pendant too.
He did. He didn't trade it away though. He kept it, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, yeah. So it's hard for authors to kill off characters, but man, Brandon's getting good at killing off the same character and making us initially think she's dead. So
That's true. How many times can we kill the girlfriend? Though their budding romance was kind of cute too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I figured when she got into the fire and things, she was going to have to find some way to kill herself or somehow before, so she wouldn't die and lose all her powers and everything.
Yeah. And then sure enough, she ended up setting up like a remote trigger, right? With her gun or whatever.
so that's actually the gun David had. That's the one, the faithful guy gave
Oh,
to him, and then he was setting up reconnaissance and he set up his
that's
gun so that he
right.
could see and track it. And I assume that's when everybody knew that Megan was helping him because she was moving with the gun and she was like, "Hey, I'm coming over to you." So how is David in the building setting up the camera, and then all of a sudden the gun's moving. But yeah,
Hmm.
then Prof and Val confront David, and she's still got the gun, and that's the one that she set up with the. Yeah, and it's funny because you have the whole gun romance with David and how he's like, "Oh, you're on probation." And then
Yeah.
you're not as
Right.
good as my other one. But meanwhile, as soon as Megan rolls up and she's ogling it, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're awesome."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And their little date to go track down the other epics and everything.
Yep. My
Yeah.
favorite line or quote that I didn't grab because I am silly is the potato one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Megan,
Oh,
you're like a potato in a minefield. And she's like, "What?" It's like, yeah, because you're in a minefield and you step on something and you think, "Oh no, I'm dead," but it's just a potato. So what you thought was so horrible is actually so great. And she's like, "A potato? Why can't I be cake?" And he's like, "Because cake doesn't grow in a minefield, obviously." Oh.
I thought the metaphors were a little bit better this time than they were on the first book. I could
yeah.
tolerate
Yeah,
it a little bit more, I guess.
And it kind of fit with the character because he's younger, he's sheltered, he's an introvert, and then he's getting a little more worldly per se. Yeah,
He's had more social interactions now. He's now the spokesperson for the Reckoners in Chicago, Nukago.
yeah, New Chicago,
Yeah, so
which I'm pretty sure that's all upended now because with Prof and knowing all of the Reckoner cells and everything is suspect.
start tying up loose ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what did you think of how they did Manhattan into the new Babalar? I think it was.
Or Babylon.
Babylon. Yeah.
I thought it was unique. It's kind of a theme. The only thing we're missing now, or well, no, I guess there's what, 4 elements: earth, wind, fire. We had earth with steel, or water. That's we only have 3 books. He can't do it. He can't do the full element because we had metal with earth, and now we had water with Babylon, and then
Well, we got fire that keeps getting killed off every book. Firefight, right? So does that mean the last one's wind?
maybe.
Yeah.
Firefight's power, like I wish we got more into it, and that I feel
Her reveal
somehow
about it was pretty cool. The fact that she's not actually an illusionist, she deals with the parallel worlds and everything.
Which also was a convenient way to save our bacon at the end.
Oh yeah? How so, Pete?
Oh man, we got Prof, full epic mode, about to absolutely lay us out, and I'm like, all right, David, it's been nice to know you. Main character's dead, story's over, and here comes freaking Firefight Megan coming back and just like changing the reality of where Prof's force fields are. Oh man.
Carlos said he said there won't be a 4th book for the Reckoner series, which is extremely disappointing because I am having a lot of fun in the universe.
I thought you guys
but it's
said
not
that
technically part of his
third
Cosmere.
Is conclusive.
Did we say that?
Oh.
I don't think anything.
Oh, well,
I don't know, Pete.
I got the impression
you might just have to listen to it.
Conclusive, but I don't know.
Yeah,
and I feel like you could always do more.
Couldn't you say the 3rd book in Mistborn Era 1 is pretty conclusive, yet we have
conclusive in the fact of a brand new beginning. Like
that's every ending, bro.
Okay.
Every ending is a new beginning.
When one door closes, a window opens, or another door opens, something like that.
Yes. 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 Good times. Good times. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson's just so amazing at his writing. Like even at the beginning, we have David and Prof's relationship kind of like building and everything, and how Prof continues to, he pretty much becomes like the father figure replacement for David, right? And how David just feels so amazing and empowered because like he gets that recognition and didn't realize how much he was missing in his life from Prof, like early on as they're fighting, was it Sourcefield? And then the several times Prof tries to get him to come clean to him about Megan. And then like, oh man, when he's like trapped there in the underwater base and everything, like you just feel for David because Hiro is trying to do everything he could.
Fix everything. And
best intentions.
Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of potential.
So one of the big concepts in book 2 that we learned about was some of these epics getting their powers boosted. And White Thatch commented, "Imagine if Calamity boosted Firefight's powers." So her power set is the parallel worlds, right, where she can kind of like
Yeah,
make
she
the
ports a
dimensions
shadow.
overlap. So just imagine like if her powers got boosted, how much more she could do that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where like she says she's not a super strong one, and that's why she doesn't go as Calamity as everybody else. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty interesting power portfolio, and it makes me feel like oh, Bobaverse where we've got the others about to stomp us into the ground because we've been sending out radio signals, except for it's because we've been porting their realities into our reality, and they're like, you know what? That looks nice. I want me some of that. So I'm a little concerned. Brandon, if you're listening, side series, you're welcome. Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
Write more stuff.
No, no, no. He doesn't need to write more stuff. We need Stormlight to get done sooner.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. So, out of our reckoners for book 2, which one did you guys feel was our MVP for this? Steel Slayer certainly had his moments, but he had plenty of goof ups. I'm trying to think. I kind of felt like Missy, as much as she screwed up, kind of saved the day there in that clutch moment, trusting David and helping him with what was his name? Our incineration guy, the one that likes to quote scripture
Obliteration.
at it. Obliteration. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess Val didn't really have any redeeming factors other than her story with the tank. Um, XL was there for the comic relief for a lot of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see XL be successful, and he could definitely be the father figure after Prof has gone all
But
Calamity, but
he gets
he's
killed.
dead. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
mm,
How would you feel somebody always telling you like, you look good in a casket, good bone structure, a little this, a little that. It's like, what?
man, it's not
That's
so far from the norm from my normal thoughts. I have random like that little old lady who's in the middle of the aisle at the grocery store. I just want to run her over with my cart. So it's
uh,
not too far.
too funny. Too
What did you
funny.
think of the reveal of Calamity was not just a star, but was an actual epic who was
Uh,
like in charge of everything?
I man, so that oh,
Go. You haven't read
so
book 3, Pete. You could do some theory crafting.
so much
We'll
good stuff
listen and
slash potential, and I imagine it's like Superman when he's put into the ship and shot off but doesn't make it, and then somehow or I
you
guess
mean
well sorry
Kakarot?
I haven't gotten my DBZ thing in. It's kind of like Kakarot when he gets they're being attacked and he gets shot off. So there's a lot of potential. It's interesting or unique why oh Miss Water Nanny, I can't think of her name.
This water nanny.
Or I guess she's not a nanny. She has a caretaker.
Oh, Regalia?
Yeah. It's interesting to see how Regalia can talk to Calamity, as
Mm-hmm.
well as when David talks to Calamity. It's not the same as other epics when they're in their, you know, chaotic, all powerful. And it's weird because I would have thought it would have been like super angry from Calamity and then trickles down to the first layer of epics and they still get angry when they utilize the power. And it's kind of like a filtration system. And so the further it goes down, the epics gift their powers to other people. And while those people are able to use it, so it's like I was thinking a filtration system, but the main guy, Calamity, doesn't seem so evil, I guess, unless it's the Madiri
Really?
twirling his mustache at every turn, um, or the like, this isn't even my final form, evil villain monologue, maybe. It was unique, and it's interesting to see the way that he can directly gift. And I don't
Hmm.
know if Regalia did something special to facilitate the catalyst or whatnot, which was interesting because she goes and she pushes David, and I don't know if she's like continuing to hold him up on the water or if she took some of the what I forget the verbiage, but the DNA from the previous epic that created the not actuator, created the piece motivator. Created the motivator, so I don't know if she put some of his DNA onto David, and that's a subsection of her own DNA because she's got water manipulation, and if it's a similar trickle effect, but yeah, it's different than gifting and becoming. I don't know. It was very interesting. It definitely was a beautiful twist towards the end, and there were so many great twists at the end.
Brandon's so good at that. Sometimes the authors like get so predictable with their foreshadowing that you could pretty much just like start writing it about halfway through. But he's always just so good about those twists at the end that once you go back and really start looking at it, at least for me, you realize like, okay, there was a bit of foreshadowing here, but it wasn't so like overbearing. And yet the twists weren't so crazy that it's unrealistic, right? Like even in this at the very beginning, I remember thinking back like initially when they were talking about Calamity coming, maybe I just assumed that everyone who got epic powers got it when Calamity showed up and that was it. But then we find out that Sourcefield got it like 2 years after Calamity. So, normies are still getting powers. So we kind of get those pieces like, okay, this can happen. People can develop powers after Calamity, showed up in the sky.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's where things get weird too, because I know it's not a sci-fi, but I've always heard that astronauts have a different DNA makeup when they come back from space. So they go into space and they don't have all the spheres or whatever that at oh man, I'm butchering words. The stratosphere and whatever we're poking holes in with all our admission sphere and all these other
mhm.
things. So when astronauts come back, their genetic makeup is different. Well, okay, we've now got a super all powerful calamity sun type thing blasting us with different rays that we don't have our antibodies built up for. I know I jumped around there, but so if that's how it gets changed, that'd be interesting versus if they haven't already become an epic, they're have developed antibodies, so to speak. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting elements because yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much.
Well, and how was David able to not take the power when he was offered it and be able
Or
to, you know,
It, it,
that
it, it
is
implied that
weird.
he confronted his fear, right? Because we saw just the terror he has from the water. So like that was kind of like his fear, I guess. And since he confronted it,
Well, it seems like everybody's fear is a direct opposite. So Steelheart, his fear is people who don't fear him. So being impervious is kind of a counter. And then same thing with Spark Lady at the very beginning, who her fear was the liquid. So opposite of liquid is lightning in my mind. So that's kind of a thing. Regalia, we didn't really have a direct opposite because she wasn't a high epic, and we were just kind of like, and you're gone. Yeah. So
Carlos said, Peter, you're cracking me up with the whole poking sphere scientific term is how I would roll with it. Yeah.
well,
That's
but
what we're here
you know
for.
what I'm talking about. I got there. I just couldn't think of the words.
Yeah, it's all good. That's why we got Karen here to keep us on point with names and terms.
Yeah.
We can go off into the wild tangents about space dust and Bobiverse and DBZ references. So, yeah. Trying to think.
So,
Go ahead, Pete.
So back to how David was able to confront his fears. I wasn't 100% if it was like a 1-for-1, like I was trying to say, where his fear was the water. He never got his shark shoes, BT dubs, but if his fear was the water and then he confronted it and, became one with it, so the seed couldn't take, or if it was his other somewhat fear, because as he was feeling the power go through him, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and off myself as soon as this happens, if it's the fear of becoming an epic itself. So, yeah, it didn't really get fleshed out. It was quite subtle.
Yeah. I feel like you just can't win, though, at the end of book 2, right? Like, we finally get Firefight Megan, where she confronts her fears and she comes back, a bit more in control of things. And then
Just
we
to
lose our
lose Prof. Yeah.
And kill people along the way.
Well, I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, because we did have direct communication with Calamity. We do know he is an epic, and we know that epics can be killed by their fears. Yeah. And then we've also
or at
seen...
least negates their powers, their fears, right? It doesn't necessarily kill them, but then...
Yeah. Thank you for stopping by, Barbara. Barbara. Okay, sorry, horrible with names.
So what else do you guys enjoy about book 2? I'm right there with Peter, where usually book 2s are kind of lulls for me, but this one was a lot of fun. Clearly got Peter's action fix. We had our comic relief. We had our...
So I guess one thing I would like to ask you guys, if it doesn't spoil too much. So Obliteration is philosophizing, doing his whole
he's a lot of fun
shtick, and then he's about to coup de grace or, fatality David, and he's like, wait a minute, what? That's the answer this whole time? People's fears? Okay, well, thanks for the info. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. I'm going to go murk a bunch of people. Or did he blow himself up? Because it was kind of like extra dramatic, but at the same time, it wasn't, because it was his normal shattering into teleport elsewhere. Um, yeah, I was thoroughly confused there because I was like, okay, I guess that was one thing that kind of irked me. David seemed to conveniently get everything he ever needed and or was really good enough just to make the story go on, but it was young adult and it did a good enough job getting it all through, and we lost our shoes, lost our gun, didn't have the Spyro, and we're essentially a kid, yeah, lost at the store, so to speak.
He got
But
the
then
girl though.
I did, yeah.
All good speculation, Peter, for book 3. Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll find out here soon when we get ready to geek out on Calamity.
That's right.
Yeah, well, so I would almost so two pieces. Part number one, or I guess two options, speculation. Calamity is a gifter, which they're all gifters in if they can do it correctly. Like I was saying with the filtration system, where Calamity gives his power to an epic, if they gift it to somebody else, that third person down the line doesn't go crazy. What if we go full, oh, My Hero Academia on it, and he decides to gift everybody powers, and that makes it so that he's not crazy, which makes it so it's a big kumbaya, holding hands circle, everything is awesome. I don't think that's going to be good enough for me because it's not enough combat, but there's potential.
So you're saying
options.
instead Battle Royale, where there can only be one.
Yeah, pretty much. I figure we save a couple, more people die, and then we have that moment looking back where we're like, we made it. Is it really over? Dun dun dun. No,
Yeah.
no, it's not.
There's plenty of battles in 3, don't you think, Carl?
Okay.
For Peter.
I think so. He'll get his fix. Yeah. I'm looking forward to going back and rereading it. There was a period where I would re-listen to Brandon Sanderson, all his stuff, like every 3 months. But it's been a while for me since I've done the Reckoner series, and so I'm kind of looking forward to having that fresh look at it again for the upcoming Geek Out. Oh, hey. Carlos said Battle Royale is a good book, really violent if you haven't read it.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That seems to be after. Oh, it's got the little bird on it, and what's the catchphrase? May the odds be in your favor? No.
Be ever in your favor. That's, Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Ever since, other people have done it, Hunger Games did it best. Yes,
Have you actually
everybody's.
listened to Hunger Games?
No, I saw part of a movie, I think, at a place.
The books are better. Come
Books
on.
are better. Books are better.
You should
And
read
I'm
it.
trying to remember. Karen, have you done the prequel?
I did, and I didn't finish it because I didn't care enough about the character to whether he lived or died. I mean, you hated him from the beginning, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, you get his backstory of how he became the evil villain that he is, but I just like, okay. I kept going on and on. I was just like, I finally had to just read a summary and say, okay, how does this thing end? Because I don't want to invest any more time in it.
Duly noted. I've been curious about it because I enjoyed the trilogy, Hunger Games. It's always hard going in with expectations too when like the hype is really good. Like Hunger Games is good, but it's really hyped as being super good. So yeah, probably push the prequel to the end of our TBR then. What were you going to say, Pete?
This one is a little different for Brandon Sanderson's work. It's similar yet different, and I guess it makes sense because it's one of his earlier pieces. But normally, Brandon's good about giving somebody that you love to hate, like Mistborn, for example. you hate the Lord Ruler, but I'm not going to say more. You end up feeling sorry for the guy. Kind of similar to like Steelheart in this book, where he, at the very beginning, is, David's Batman, where they kill his parents or parent at the time, and he's plotting his revenge. And then, as we see at the beginning of book two, he's like, this could have been anybody after their powers are negated, and you see that fear in their eyes. He's really working on trying to save them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's similar yet different.
Yeah. What'd you guys think about Dawn's Light? The guy that was
he's the fortune cookie guy, right?
He was.
Yeah, the one who does the super growth plants with the blinking fruit and the
he was in
fortune
amnesia
cookies.
as a kid. That's his backstory. We find out from
Is it
Regalia
amnesia, or is it just because he's in a coma?
Oh, yeah, you're right. A coma. Wrong.
Yeah, so he's trapped
you're right.
in the mind of a child because he's in a coma, and he's able to project his utopia. So
he's kind of like their caregivers, right?
Yeah, he definitely saves their bacon so many times.
He doesn't have that that apathy that the other Reckoners have, or not Reckoners, Epics have, because he's there kind of helping out David and whatnot, right? With the fortune cookies and
there's a lot of times he saves. So for David, when there's a couple times. There's one where he's in a building, epics are around, and he sees the blinking light, and he's like, "What's going on with this?" And he ends up, not being found. There's the one with Missy when she gets wigged out, and she's like, "Oh, hey, we got the message," and she comes back at the end. There's the moment when David's fighting Regalia, and he does his, that doesn't really fit. Anyway, he does his super growth on the roots, which absorb all the water, kind of negating Regalia. Yeah. So Carlos, back to Battle Royale is a good book. He says, very different from Hunger Games movie. I guess not Battle Royale. Very different from Hunger Games movie. Haven't read the books yet. Reminded me in the start of an anime about survival and human nature than politics.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, since Karen and I know a bit about book 3, what do you think is going to happen to the Reckoners, Pete, in book 3, now that Prof has taken up the mantle of evil overlord? His NASA girlfriend kind of disappears without a trace.
I was going to say, she's still alive.
We assume she's still alive. We don't know what's happened to her.
Couple ways it could go. If you twist this on its head, where it's a guy who I love to love, and then you do other stuff where he has the heroic, I'm going to save everybody. Like if Prof, he was so cool at the end when he was using his powers, and he was like, beepity beep, force field, Silver Surfer, and then doing all this extra anyway. Either A, Prof is going to have an epic battle with the remaining Reckoners and David. He's going to be about to crush David again under his boot as the worm he is. realize the error of his ways, go Super Saiyan, God mode, bubble, and all the extra holy power lights on him, fly off into the sunset, which is actually Calamity, and yeah, kill Calamity. Everybody goes back to normal, and we win.
I think it's interesting how David always thinks he can save Prof. Now, even more because he's turned into this massive epic, evil epic and is killing people, he still is convinced he knows how to find his weakness and turn him to the good side.
So that's another thing. I think Prof is going to kind of embrace being a epic, and he's going to wholesale slaughter all the other epics. Kind of. He's going to do multiple things. He's going to kind of build up his power base, be the big, Jabba the Hutt, don't mess with me. But at the same time, he's going to take out epics like he would anyway, just with other epics, as well as so Regalia was taking Epic's powers, amplifying Epic's powers, was able to communicate with Calamity himself, and all these other things. And Prof, not necessarily the best background, but still an educator and educated. So a lot of potential there for him to utilize those and to amplify things, which is why I feel like Prof is going to be our guy to go Super Saiyan, because he's going to murk all the other epics, collect their genetic material, I forget the verbiage they use, and supercharge himself. Yeah.
Supercharge. So, Carlos, did you all see similarities between the Reckoner series and the Bible with the many biblical references?
So I didn't necessarily connect them, but I did realize that was the whole persona of obliteration.
He quoted scripture, right?
Yeah.
And I know that Brandon Sanderson was a missionary for a while, 2 years, 2-year leave of absence, 95 to 97, served as a volunteer missionary in South Korea. So like it's a big influence in his life. Carlos followed up with David, Abraham, Regalia, Holy Powers, Reckoners, as in the Day of Reckoning. Yeah, good points. Good points. Even Babylon? Is Babylon a biblical?
I was going to say, I've definitely heard the name before.
It was a city.
Oh, it's ancient empire. Yeah. But yeah. And then White Thatch. What if Calamity has no emotions or concepts of emotion, and it's the human emotions that causing the powers to make people crazy? That's a good angle on it. Because, we read about that in a lot of other sci-fi books, just about how, what is alien?
Yeah.
Their whole concept and perceptions on life compared to ours, like what makes them alien. So
is Calamity the kid with the magnifying glass poking at the ants? Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly.
He is, like they call Calamity the meteor, right? That showed up. Yeah. Babylon is where the Jews were in exile. Thanks, Carlos. Okay. Which in this book, it's kind of that tantalizing sweet, right? Where here David's thinking that some of the epics can be good, and then we have this utopia under Regalia where she pretty much, keeps all the other epics in check. People can kind of live in peace, more or less, up until the end when she tries to lure John aka Prof. Yeah. Peter's making faces. We'll wait for it.
So a lot of different separate lines of thought going on. Yeah, I think it's kind of sad because I feel like Prof's Achilles heel is his I can't think of the word, NASA lover
Tia.
Tia.
Yeah.
And I
Or
kind
the
of feel
lover.
like that's going to be how it all works. It's either going to be her who negates Prof's power, or, you know,
But then if that
her,
was the case, he couldn't be gifting around her.
or,
Right?
but it's probably something like oddly specific, like
She probably
seeing
knows
her in danger, and that's why she's, you know, only ever
Mm,
collecting information, and that's why he's pushed her more towards a, I guess, management side of things.
yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. Such a fun book.
Oh yeah,
Such a fun book. A lot of good reveals in it. I enjoyed the moments with Megan just to kind of get the insights into the epics.
as well as how tantalizing her powers are, slash how much she freaking saved uh, David's bacon.
His potatoes.
Yeah.
So what happens to our Babelar, our Manhattan, once she dies? It basically all the water starts flooding away. What's that going to do to our poor city?
So
It's built on.
Well, Dawn's Light had the root systems, right? Because that was something they were talking about being worried about.
Yeah, the bottoms being eroded, but I think it's going to affect Don's Light in a way as well, because with his plants, it's convenient if you have all the water there, as well as, I forget who it is who mentions it, but they're like, oh, he was using the water to heat and to keep it at a decent temperature. The thing that gets me is, so Tia was a space
NASA
NASA
scientists.
scientist stuff anyway. So the fact that they all work together, and then Prof is going to check out her notes, get more information, and the weird radio factor is what has me interested. What if this is one of the powers that Calamity has but hasn't gifted and is actively utilizing to make a radio wave not opposite of EMP field, which allows them to work? Maybe he's, you know, collecting notes or other things, and maybe only in that specific location can the epics talk to Calamity, because the way Regalia sounds, it sounds like, you know, she can just call him up whenever. And after David denies the power and she's baffled and Calamity's not talking to her anymore. Yeah, so I feel like that's one of those things that they mentioned and David kind of wigs out about, and he's like, what's going on here? But didn't really get explained.
Yeah. Yeah. So we already have Calamity scheduled if you guys want to hang out with us for the conclusion of this series. June 30th, I believe we're sticking with the 7 o'clock time on Wednesdays for now. The Wednesday day time is subject to change. Just kind of what worked best for everybody, though we might push it a little bit later in the week just because only gives us like 2 nights to get through another book. before moving on to the next one?
I would say we
We'll
had a
see.
decent turnout. We had all our regulars, thank you, White Thatch and Carlos, for, popping through and stopping by.
Yeah, and everybody
But
else.
yeah, I guess it's, if we are going to continue with Wednesdays, we need to keep it to shorter books like the series. I wouldn't say do like Iron Prince, which is a massive book, or
Or
Stormlight
Stormlight.
Archives, or
Please.
I mean,
30-hour book at
we could get
3XP,
through
10
it,
hours,
but
Maybe only once or twice.
yeah, it wouldn't be as detailed.
Uh, uh, but yeah. Yeah. What other big things did we miss, guys? Karen, Peter from book 2. It's always hard to get all the love in 1 hour.
Well,
I think we're going to have to explore in the next book more of Megan and her alternate universe powers of being able to pull that and how that all works, because that was a little confusing actually to figure out what she was doing and how she was doing it.
We got a little bit of explanation from her, but yeah, didn't quite have the opportunity to wrap her head around it. I'm curious to see, now that she's confronted her fears, how using her powers works in the future.
Yeah, I guess that was an interesting factor, because typically utilizing them is the direct opposite of their fears. So yeah, she's afraid of fire, so she uses, I guess that one doesn't quite line up, but she's afraid of the smoke and almost dying in the fire, so her being able to go into a different dimension or pull things to her to help with it makes some semblance of chaos. Sense. And isn't the word calamity defined as organized chaos?
I thought it was just a swear word. Calamity.
No, that's slants or whatever.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, that's another thing Brandon does really well. He makes a unique curse word for each of his books. That way it's not directly offensive.
So Webster says a disastrous event marked by great loss and lasting distress and suffering, calamities of nature and economic calamity.
Oh, yeah, Carlos pulled it too.
Yeah, good looking out, Carlos. A state of deep distress or misery caused by major misfortune or loss. So, yeah.
Well, then what is organized chaos?
Geek on my sleeve twice a week. And we're happy to have you guys. So, yeah. Yeah. Definitely looking forward to, in book 3, taking the gloves off and doing a deeper dive on this series. It's a lot of fun. Before Skyward came out, this was one of my most common gifted out books for YA ages, just because what's not to love about superheroes and all that awesomeness. Yeah. Plus, like, our hero is a complete nerd, even though he's not a nerd, maybe a dork, as he kind of finds his way in the world. Go ahead, Pete.
But yeah, it's the whole learning through his eyes as the stuff happens, and the analytical side of, piecing everything together.
Yeah. So on that note, Pete,
Yeah.
what we got going on?
Coming up Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, we're going to give our boy Bryce O'Connor a little love. He popped in. We found him through a collaboration event, which was Mark of Kings. I always get it confused with Way of Kings. Mark of Kings with Luke Chimilenko, right?
Yeah. One of our favorite lit RPG authors and one of our early lit RPG authors that got us hooked.
And thoroughly enjoyed Bryce O'Connor's collaboration there, and he popped through. And yeah, so thought we would. Is there another Bryce O'Connor book we collaborated with?
He also did. Oh, you just name dropped it. The other Luke Chimilenko won Stormweaver.
Oh, Iron Prince. Oh, okay, yeah. Both are phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what comes of them. So we figured we like Luke Chimilenko. Let's check out some of the origin of Bryce O'Connor. And this is Child of Daystar. This is a Sunday Geek Out 81. If I had to spoiler free / synopsize it, I would say it's they're essentially human nomads who kind of go place to place, and they end up adopting a dragonkin. That's not actually the word they use in the book, but for descriptive purposes, dragonkin. And he doesn't really know any different because he was brought up as one of their kids, more or less. And then it goes a little Batman. Will not be saying any more. As well as it kind of goes a little bit James Bond. Sorry, that probably wasn't a great synopsis. Carl, tag.
Yeah. I think I said it in the last one that we've been wanting to show Bryce O'Connor some love just because we enjoyed the collaboration so much that when I finally did get around to listening to it, I wish I didn't wait so long, because in a lot of ways it's kind of what every youth wants in a story, because who doesn't freaking want dragonkin, right? And to have the main character be about dragonkin, and they pretty much in this world coexist, but they've never intermingled because the cultures are just so different. So they
I feel like they mingle, but there were language barrier issues as well.
Yeah. So like Pete said, we meet the main character very early on. He's a youth captured by slave traders, and he's super rare and valuable because he's a winged male, and they are few and far between. Males are already rare. And after the slave traders, quote unquote, leave him for dead, this caravan picks him up and adopts him and raises him as one of their own. And we get to go from there. It's so hard to do spoiler freeze without getting into the details, but it's a lot of fun. Definitely worth checking out. Finish the first book. I want to say there is, I'll pull it up real quick.
I want to say 7, but that's just from the hip. I'm only listening to the first one so far.
Yeah, I think we got 5.
Oh, okay.
So far. We wish 7. But yeah, looking forward to geeking out over that this Sunday. And then you have next Wednesday ready? Yeah. So Carlos said squirrel earlier when we were talking about our ADD. And going to go ahead and throw this disclaimer out there. book is a little bit more mature than we typically do. We are going to keep our Geek Out PG-13, but if you're okay with a little bit more mature flavor, it doesn't get graphic. It's not erotica or anything like that. But for those that are a little bit more of the mature mindset, it's a book that I'm looking forward to Peter reading because as much as I love him and he can hyper focus, he can also squirrel all over the place, like our main character here. And it's pretty much the God King's legacy is his sword, and the epic swords or weapons kind of have like spirit bodies and everything. So it's kind of like Bleach meets fantasy, where you have humans, fae, demons, beastkin, etc., all in this realm. And the God King, before he passed away, got up to like the 6th circle of magician or whatever, and that was known to be like really high in his time, and he was the God King. And yet in the current age, we have like up to 10th circle magicians. So think of kind of like your old school samurai ninja type era, but with beastkin, demons, and fairies. And early on in the book, we meet the sword of the God King, and he's kind of like trapped in this soul space, and he gets discovered because everybody wants to claim the God King's legacy. And he's discovered by one of the princes of the human nation, and he has like a couple other spirit weapon spirits with him, and then this main character, Beastkin Squirrel, who is pretty much a slave in the army. And the sword, I believe it's Dante, was so fed up with like just humans and everything, like her being the only beastkin there. You know, the prince tries to claim her, and he walks over to her, and she's all like just squirreling about, and he's pretty much like, hey, don't you want to be my owner? And all of a sudden this slave squirrel beastkin claims the God King's legacy, and yeah, we go from there. So it's a lot of fun. I had plenty of laugh out loud moments, but it is not child friendly. So
Or
Carlos
Carlos.
asks, is it adult as in violence, sexual, or themes? So it's not overly sexual, but you do get some language about anatomy and parts, as well as she develops a crush on her sword spirit. And so there is some adult themes, but it's not overly graphic. I'm not sure how much that helps. We do get
So I think it might be kind of like what I do, where I personify it, and I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah.
this
So
extra stuff that wasn't even in the book, but I'm gonna pretend really happened.
yeah, and we do get a lot of talk about blood, and some of the characters aren't always the most ethical, if you will, but for me, in a way, it was just a lot of laugh out loud moments, because in the way that life can be sometimes, you can't help but just laugh about it. But it is, like I said, more mature. We do have an ADD squirrel as our main character who has a crush on her sword spirit. And it is about the ascension of these characters. So Helps, but not as bad bastard. Gotcha. Yeah. Definitely worth checking out. It's a lot of fun, and the audiobook does a great job. Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate you hanging out with us, as well as everyone else who made time on their Wednesday night, including Karen, who was brave enough to come up on camera as Peter and I squirrel all over the place and pull us back on the book. But yeah, we appreciate it. Do we miss anything else, guys?
I feel like fit inside our time frame, did justice for Firefight within it, and excited for the third book of The Reckoner.
Yeah, about 2 weeks out. Going to be geeking out on that. In the meantime, we're going to do some dragons and squirrels. So, party.
Yeah, humans are lame. They only get XP bumps. They don't get any special stats.
But yeah, I was going to quote the land, but then we won't get Peter to stop talking about how great the land is. So, yeah.
Everybody tell him to do the land. I thoroughly enjoy it, but it's one of those where the community seems pretty tight-knit, and anybody who has started it has already finished it. So I would like to dissect every book, but the reality is if you're not doing the most recent stuff, it's not super relevant for 95% of the people unless you don't marathon mode 40-hour long books, which I guess is only book 7, but anyway.
Final thoughts? Gnomes rule?
Gnomes rule. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Karen, and hope to geek out with you guys here soon.
Bye.
Bye.